And I am back. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm KP. And yes, thanks for listening to this latest episode after a little hiatus. But yes, I've got some good podcasts planned and I'm excited to be back. This episode is with Laura Hope. Some of you regular listeners might know her. And my new wife. Yeah, we got married, which is insane. And enjoy this episode.
You are listening to the IAMKAYPEE podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the IAMKAYPEE podcast. Well, another episode after absolute months of not sharing any more episodes. It's the return of the king, as you'll find out. And that snigger is obviously Laura Hope.
Yes, it's me. I'm back also after, a long hiatus.
Yes.
Yay.
It's just
Here we are.
how life goes sometimes.
We've done some, there have been some
Shit gets in the way.
major life events.
Yes, I'm pregnant.
Nothing. Yes, you are with a goldfish. It's weird.
Our banner's not got any better.
It's sad. We're out of practice.
So yes, cheers.
Cheers.
So yeah, for anyone that sort of follows the show closely, if there's anyone,
My mom.
yes, your mom. Basically, this is to her.
She knows already anyway.
It's been like maybe 6 months since I last did an episode.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it was definitely before August.
Yeah, I was going to sort of like explain in the intro of this episode just basically why, but there's no big reason like that I've been sort of just not doing another episode. It's just down to like time and sort of you want to feel like you're bringing something every time you podcast. Like you want to feel like you're doing something not necessarily new, because you'll never be able to do that, but you just want to feel like you're actually achieving something with every episode.
Yeah.
And I think the couple of ones before that and then a couple of guests pulled out at the very last minute, so that kind of just just threw me off in terms of just taking a little headspace time, and just sitting back and sort of thinking and analysing what I want to do with the shows, obviously.
Like a man who reflects. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
I do. Yeah.
What about a husband?
Well, that's one of the life events that were happening whilst you weren't podcasting. I was going to say, it's not like you haven't been doing anything else either, because you've been working like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And we got a tiny bit married
Yes.
in November. And before that, we had a major holiday.
Podcast married.
Yeah. First Merce
Anyone that listened to the first
podcast.
couple of episodes to Laura and I together on this episode would have said, well, those guys are
We were always wondering when those two crazy kids would get together.
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say. It happened. You guys asked for it. We got together.
Yep. We did a poll
A poll.
on social media. Yeah. Yeah, we've done some traveling. We've done 2 pretty big trips actually since your last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We survived the Edinburgh Festival, which is always an ordeal.
The bane of everyone's life.
Mm-hmm.
Even festival goers.
Even Bane.
Even Bane.
Probably.
Yes.
He'd hate it.
He was merely born
In the festival. Yeah.
I adopted it. You like that one, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a trip planned to Sicily, which we did do. This was...
I was like, did we not go?
You did. I didn't.
Oh,
Not in
who
spirit.
went with me?
No, I went in spirit.
You were just
I wasn't there in spirit.
reverse astral
Yeah.
projecting. You were there in body, but not in
I
spirit.
just was over it so far, so I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'll travel back.
Mm-hmm.
No. But it was amazing.
It was great. Yeah, we did. It was our first big driving trip together. And let me tell you, it's real big driving when it's Sicilian driving.
I think, you are pretty, you love Italy itself.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I've spent the most time I've spent in a place that I haven't actually properly lived has been in Italy. I think that's accurate.
Yeah. And you generally love Italy and Italian things.
Yeah, it fits in well for like a relatively introverted person, which isn't really how the Italians express themselves, but everything else works really well for me.
Well, yeah, but you hadn't been to Sicily.
No, I have not.
And I had always sort of wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's been like a few times over the years that I've thought, and it's mainly to do with an episode of Anthony Bourdain when he was in Sicily. Like I never really had thought of it other than the mafia at this point. And he brushes on that slightly, but it's a great episode, and it sort of shows the differences in like just even travel. It's kind of like I've said before on the show, like in Scotland you can go 20 miles and then go another 20 miles and you'll experience completely different accents. And then over there it's cultures, but not accents, obviously. It's just like
it's accents as well if we can understand it. We just can't because we're too stupid. So
but
maybe one day.
yeah, it's more cultural. Like you can go like 60 kilometers and it's completely different, Palermo and compared to Catania, like just down to what they eat.
Yeah, and even like, and they had language differences as well, which is like I loved that as there's like difference in, because obviously Italian is a gendered language and there's difference with some of their words from one city to the other. What gender the words are was just completely fascinated me, and has a weird kind of Freudian implication as well, which I liked.
Explain. Show your work.
So we were told that the probably most famous food of Sicily is arancini, which are the little kind of rice fried bites with stuff on the inside. Basically, if you've had like quote unquote Italian street food, you've probably had those. So we started off in Catania, and obviously Catania is sort of just about on the slopes of Mount Etna, which is a big, massive volcano, and it certainly dominates the landscape around there. And as far as I understood it, it was you get one arancino, you get multiple arancini, which means that arancini are boys. Turns out if you go to Palermo, and they're kind of cone-shaped in Catania. The ones in Palermo, they're round, and they're girls. They're arancine. And basically, the Palermitans think that the Catanians
Did you
are
just
all...
make that up?
No, it's real, Palermitans. Could you not tell from the confidence with which I said it?
Did you look this up?
Maybe. At some point. Not today.
Where does simpletons come from?
A full Hermione Granger.
Where does simpletons come from?
Simple. Basically, yeah, the Palermitans think the Catanians are like, oh, you're so obsessed with your volcano and your arancini are boys and they're shaped like volcanoes, and ours are just normal, which I thought was quite funny.
I guess Catania says that about Palermitonians.
Yeah, I don't know what the take on shape would be.
I'm sure
vice versa.
If you found someone that had a bee in his bonnet about...
Yeah, we should find a Catanian and ask them about the Palermitans and their little round girl arancini.
Sorry, my screen's cut off. As always with this podcast, there's always going to be an element of technical issues. So yeah.
Excluding the 2 hours of technical issues before this podcast began recording. But
it's just the technology I used before for my podcast, but before it stops, is kind of changed. Like I'm using a new software, and I had bought a new monitor in between that time, so the settings which I had set on my old monitor weren't on this one. So my monitor has went to sleep while I was recording, and I wasn't sure if it was going to still record.
And moreover, the sound of it snoring as it slept was really interfering.
Perform hope. And for those people listening, Laura did not take on my last name.
No, I'm the last of the hopes. I gotta hang on to it.
You got nope.
Nope.
There's going to be no hope.
Is that it?
We'll get into that, because that's something that people have spoken to us about, or asked us, actually, in fact, about the whole, will you take on the last name?
Yeah, it's funny because I never
Just
even...
to get back to Sicily.
Yeah. Well, okay. Put a pin in that. I get, for someone who has always absolutely loved traveling in Italy and has spent a lot of really good time there, I'd never really thought about Sicily. But it was one of the best trips of my life. Like it was, and we're going back in like 6 weeks. So obviously, we meant it.
Obviously, yeah. It was great though. Like,
Yeah.
I've never met. People always say this when they go traveling, but they always say, "Oh, the people there are so like just amazing, friendly, and fantastic," and that's as someone who's traveled a bit, that is true. But as like Sicily is like the most, and sort of extreme version of that. Like I found everyone sort of once you just said, had an excuse to speak to someone, then they're your best friend for that night,
Yeah, and it was easy to have conversations with people, like not just the usual like holiday stuff where people are friendly but you don't really get anywhere. It was very easy to meet people, and people seem genuine and like not guarded, or like if they were guarded, because I mean they do have a lot of tourism, and as we very well know, living in Edinburgh, one gets a bit jaded dealing with tourists all the time, and I thought there'd be a bit more of that, but it was like you didn't have to do that much to prove you were okay, and then it was really easy to get along with people. We had just really good conversations.
What surprised you the most, do you think?
Oh man, that's a really good question. It was more just an atmosphere. Like there's a weird, for like a very sunny, beachy country, which isn't why we traveled there, but we had some really nice beach time too. But there's like a weirdly goth element to a lot of it because they've been through such tough times. Like they've been taken over so many times and got bombed to smithereens in World War II. And I think it's just like Catania, we found it it almost felt like it had been abandoned and then reoccupied by people who were just like living life to the max but hadn't completely filled the place, and there were like bats and there's all sorts of mummies around in churches, and
it feels like, I don't mean this in a negative way, but when the sort of image you have of post-Roman Britain where there's all these technologies that were around that after the Romans left the UK that they weren't really sort of sure how they worked, so it kind of went back to the Dark Ages. Yeah,
it was sort of like in the footsteps of giants kind of vibe.
But I'm sure they probably had the best of times, regardless of the things that they couldn't have in Roman technology, and that's kind of similar with Sicily. Like they had all these like great civilizations in the past.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, those had been obliterated. And they're kind of living in the shell of what used to be those like fantastic civilizations.
Yeah.
But they're just dealing with it and sort of loving life.
Well, it's like the center of the map has moved. Like it used to be such an important place geographically. Like it was sort of the center, like the belly button of the world in a way.
Navel.
The navel. Actually, that's the nickname of Enna, which is in the center of Sicily. It's the navel of Sicily because it's right in the middle. But
is
for some place
in the middle of your body,
arguably it's more in the middle than anything else. I don't know. Depends. Good question. One for the scholars. Like it feels like it's almost like thriving now that less attention is getting paid to it, because it got a lot of all the attention that was paid to it was like, we're going to conquer that, or we're going to use that in some strategic way.
And it seems like there's always been some sort of ruling class there, whether it's been sort of like a monarchy, sorry.
Macrame?
Or the mafia, there's always something that's like underlying that rules the sort of. So I think people just are trying to get on with their life and make the best of it.
That almost ties into what I'm saying about this weird. I'm not able to articulate it really well, but this weird goth undertone to this like sunny paradise is like there's always been this vampiric aspect to it where like different groups are coming in and kind of
leeching,
sucking the life out of it. Yeah.
Succubi.
Yeah.
Not succubus.
No, not the bus.
Would you say succubi?
Succubi, plural.
This is always the thing I ask Laura about, is when I'm trying to pluralize.
Pluralize.
How do you pluralize?
Got plurals then. Or pluralizings? I don't know. Pluralizing indiscriminately into the crowd.
It's my favorite thing to ask you what it would be. And generally she's on point.
And mostly I'm making it up, but I've got informed guesses.
It's like octopus.
Octopodus.
That's what.
But nobody wants to hear octopodus.
But most people think they're like you go in a pub and you say like, oh, octopuses, and people are like, I think you'll find this. You know, it's when it's like a that's legal tender.
Oh,
know,
yeah.
you know that type of thing in Scotland.
Or the Kool-Aid man, like, well, actually.
The
Yeah.
people, when they hear you say that, you can just say, well,
Yeah.
actually, it's
Yeah.
octopi.
Yeah.
And
They're like,
it's
well,
like,
actually,
no.
it's octopodus, but I'm not a pedant, so I wasn't going to tell you that. But now you know. Because it's not Latinate, so it's not the correct pluralization.
Okay.
But it's also common use. It's like if people don't understand you, there's no point doing it right. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like yeah.
It's funny how like we're still, and it kind of ties into Sicily a little bit, but we're still using this base that was laid by the Romans in language to sort of formalize and organize our language.
Yeah.
And it's insane. Like that's something that was 2,000 years ago.
And
you know,
it's
more.
yeah.
And
This-
that's something that we still we still depend upon to have like organization in our language, or we'll all lose our shit.
Yeah, like if you can like medium recognize like Latin and Greek roots, then you can just figure out what words mean in English, even if you don't know. Like, yeah, it's really funny. It's like the ingredients.
Standing on the shoulders of Romans.
Yes. And the Romans were notorious thievers of everything cultural, so they were standing on the shoulders of a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. Like, there's nothing that's truly innovative.
Yeah. Well, like back to Sicily maybe one more time, but the cathedral in Palermo, which I think was mutually a thing that we were really surprised by and really enjoyed, is like it had been literally disassembled and reassembled by all the different kind of conquering forces that had passed through Sicily. But it was a really different approach to like, it wasn't like we've got to wipe this out. They were pretty chill about. So one example is there's an inscription in Arabic of this Christian cathedral because they had taken apart a mosque to put the cathedral together, but because the inscription is to God, they're just like, oh, it's fine, it's God, and they left it and it's right there on the front.
To me, that's one of the most fascinating parts of that church. You know, they had all the sort of procession of the equinoxes and all that sort of stuff on the floor, you know, the going through the different what's it called, star signs.
Yeah, like the
So it's that follows the light. Is that what it was? Star
I
signs?
can't remember how
Or
it works
was-
exactly, but yeah, it was like the horoscopes. Yeah.
But to me, like, it was amazing that they had this old Arabic inscription on the side,
Yeah.
and they'd reused it, you know, and they kept
Yeah,
it there.
and it
'cause
was right,
just,
yeah.
know, and that to me was fascinating.
Yeah.
And one of the things that would just blew my mind, and I was so pleased to see, was when we were in the church and we were taking this tour, and we'll get on to the guy that we were on the tour with. But there was two sort of like, I can only assume Muslim guys who were in their sort of like white garb, long white garb. And if they were or were not Muslims, it's neither here nor there, but they're definitely from a different part of the world. And it was great to see them in this Christian church and sort of just in awe of everything that was, you know, around them. And I don't know whether it was maybe to do with the fact that it had like an Arabic inscription on outside, that maybe that's what drawn them in, but they actually came into the church and they were looking around, which was amazing.
Yeah, I really
see.
like that it's like it's everyone's cultural heritage. My other favorite part about that is that to go to the loo in the church, it's like behind an altar in one of the kind of radiating chapels, and it's like the ones where you're like, can I even go in there? But this is like people, it was like something from Harry Potter. People are like walking behind this altar and disappearing, and it's because it's where the toilets are.
I heard you just like disappearing and gone, it's Leviosa.
Oh really? Yeah, it was really cool. I liked that aspect of it a lot.
What would you say was a part of Sicily that was sort of lived up to the sort of the terribleness that you've heard, you know, some bad things?
I think the only thing that struck me was when we were doing the tour in Palermo, and the number of things that were like, oh, and this is dedicated to this guy who was killed by this is dedicated to a lawyer or a priest or somebody who was killed by the mafia. And it's like, it's hard to imagine how much, like, if that was a part of your everyday life, how that would affect you, because it's sort of like a funny cultural joke if you're an outsider, but I just don't know what it's like to how much it might have changed from the past and maybe how much it hasn't changed now, and we just don't really see it. Like I don't know what the reality of that is day to day.
Yeah.
Like there's
The
a lot of
mafia,
like,
is that what you were talking about?
yeah.
Yeah. Because it's still a real element.
Yeah. And I mean, it is in loads of places as well as the state. Like there is named and unnamed corruption everywhere, but it just struck me because that was the only time it was really visible to me, other than our parking situation, which is like the thin edge of the wedge,
I like how this
mafia
is like
wise.
your favorite story that you tell everyone when
Well,
we're
it's
in
just
Sicily.
because you have this thought about it and
tell
you're
them.
like, so basically, and you have this thought about like the mafia and it's all stuff from The Godfather and people are wearing linen suits and stuff like that. And you think like, we're probably never going to see something like that. But you know, it's kind of part of the background. But we arrived in Catania on our first night and we're going to park our car, and Catania, driving in general in Sicily is total chaos. And that is a thing I had read before we went, and I was like, driven in Italy. Yeah, it's chaos, but it's fine kind of thing. But no, they're not joking. It is absolutely nuts.
It's a different level.
It is a different, like, it was like I quickly got over being horrified because I maxed out on it. And then everything was just hilarious after that. It was like, once I figured out that you could handle it very well, actually, and that we weren't going to constantly die, it became hilarious to me. But yeah, so we arrived in Catania and it was like quite hairy getting from the airport to the Airbnb because finding it's night, like we're totally disoriented. You've got a rental car, the whole thing, and then we get there and it's like,
trying not to bang this rental car.
Yeah, exactly. Which was big as well. It was like, normally you're like, yeah, upgrade, but this time it was like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, when they told me that
yeah,
they were upgrading us like free of charge. I was like, no,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
wanna get
exactly. Because it was like a
upgraded.
Jeep.
Just like give me a small
Yeah,
car.
like please, can we just have like a little Cinquecento or whatever would have been perfect. But
a moped, 2 mopeds, that'll do.
yeah,
this.
exactly. Or just one, and I can ride on the handlebars or whatever. But yeah, so we get to finally find our Airbnb, and it was like that first night. So it was like trying to figure out what we were doing wrong, and then it turns out you weren't doing anything wrong. It's just that there were no rules. People weren't mad at you because you were doing things wrong. People are just that mad when they're driving all the time.
That's
And
the one that was particularly fascinating. Opposed, like just the general sort of, opposed to the general sort of like, this is an amazing place, like it is fascinating, the history and all this sort of stuff. But the driving in itself is completely like fascinating to me. Just like why and how did it get to that point?
Yeah. And the fact that nothing bad actually happened at any point, and we were even looking up driving statistics and stuff for like
we were like
deaths on the road in Sicily, and it's
like,
like below average.
We were like, this has to be like a high death rate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised that we like before we knew the numbers. I was like, we are going to see at least like 3 or 4 deaths before we leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's just
Sicily.
like,
but nothing.
the sheer
Absolutely
ruthlessness.
nothing.
Yeah. And the only thing that we saw that was really disturbing is the infamous baby sitting in its mom's lap, and its mom was driving the car and cut us off. So its beautiful little head is like right where the steering column is. That was one of the last things. It was our last day of driving, and I was like, oh my God, we got to get out of here.
We were driving to the hotel.
To the airport.
Yeah, to the airport at the very end on the last day. So we'd sort of just acclimatized to the driving at this point. So we're like, we understand it. We know how they function and how to not get like, smashed into. Yeah,
and you got into it really well because you were just like, eye contact is weakness, like muscle through, basically, which is true. It is how to do it. Yeah.
And that's just as a pedestrian.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. I did experiments. Yeah. Yeah. If you look at them, they'll try and kill you, but if you don't look at them, they don't. Yeah.
That was the funniest thing. Like if you don't look at the driver and just walk straight across the road, they'll stop.
Yeah. But if you
look at them, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then it suddenly becomes your responsibility to not get killed.
There's like an agreement between you both that, they're going to just keep going. But if you don't look, then they have to stop.
My most successful time pedestrianing on my own, because I think I only went out on my own once or twice, was like a day and I was really hot and I hadn't had a nap. So I was really like cranky. And that was perfect because I was just like, I'm walking into traffic and everyone stopped for me. Yeah.
But we had like a fantastic time there. I
Yeah.
don't know why more people don't go to Sicily, because it's got everything that you sort of want from a holiday. There's
Yeah.
a historical sort of aspect. There's alcohol, great alcohol. The
Yeah,
food,
amazing
The
wineries.
food is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, we only had one bad meal, which was so bad it was surreal and makes for another great story. There's such a variety of landscape as well. It's like, hey, you want mountains, you want beach, you want like, what do you want? We've got it.
But the drive between Catania and Palermo, which is basically like going northwest across the island,
Yeah.
it takes like 2 hours to get up there.
Yeah, it's like really like I was just looking up driving distances for the trip we're planning now, and it's like everywhere, unless you wanted to go really from one end to the other. Like you could still do that in a day if you wanted to.
But yeah, like it was 2 hours, but in the middle of this, in the drive, it was just like completely epic. Do you remember when we were driving it like in between all these little mountain towns?
Yeah.
They were on top of these like hills that had no like. It was completely just on top of this hill, all the way around. Like there was no part that sort of faded down to the bottom.
No,
of
it was
the thing.
these
It was
literal.
Like, it was right up the top.
Yeah, like imagine like a chess piece and like all the whole business is on the top basically. And it's so high up and it's so much part of the landscape that we'd be driving and be like, is that a house? And I'd be like, oh my God, that's like a big town. That's like when we went by Enna and it was like, oh my, that's a city and it's all up on this.
Immediately we were Googling like Airbnbs.
You're like, what is this? Yeah.
It was like they had a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, and the interior was like very hilly and very kind of, it might be the time of year we were there as well, but sort of like mixed arid. Like we went through some kind of foresty bits, but a lot of quite dry bits, tons of farming.
No, we didn't really see that much wildlife.
Yeah, we like almost never saw. We saw some birds.
It was mostly coastal, the wildlife.
I'm trying to remember what we even saw. Like
we saw some birds.
We saw some birds. We saw some lizards. I think some lizards. Yeah. That's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Mopeds.
Yeah. Prickly pears. Those are nearly animals. They're very dangerous.
But also one of the reasons that when we were driving from Palermo to Catania, the idea was that Laura and I were going to visit like her uncle, like your great uncle, is it?
Yeah, it's my dad's uncle. Yeah.
He served in World War II.
Exactly.
And he was part of the Canadian troops that actually landed in Sicily.
Yeah.
And that was like a very strategic point in the war because Sicily was in between all the powers at that point, I think, was it?
Yeah, well, it was a route up into Italy, and I think everyone knew the Allies were going to attempt to invade Italy first because it makes the most sense. Like it's the only one that's not squished in amongst a bunch of other countries. But how were they going to do it? And there was an amazing kind of fake out operation because they could do it through Sicily or they could do it through Greece, and they did this wonderful. It's like insane that it worked, and it seems like something from a movie, but they planted fake plans on a body in, I think, a British military uniform that they let wash up on the beach in Spain that said they were going to invade via Greece. So all the
false flag. It's a false flag.
Yeah, except for yeah.
What? There was no flags.
Yeah, I don't know.
He didn't have any flags on him.
He did have flags on him, otherwise I wouldn't have known he was supposedly British, God knows. So the business end of the sort of German troops were moved to Greece, amazingly leaving Sicily not exactly wide open, but at least relatively open.
So part of the war I don't really know is the whole sort of them landing in Sicily and making their way up to Italy, and it's a fascinating one as well.
It really, well, I know more
pivotal.
now, but
like it's very like
it is, and it was such a big combined kind of front because it was the English, the American, and the Canadians, and there might even be other bits and pieces in there
the
as well.
Germans were in Africa as well.
Yeah,
that's another part of the war I don't really know much about.
Yeah, it's such a big kind of field, but yeah, we were doing a little crash coursing, like me reading Wikipedia to you while we were driving, but anyway,
one of the things I said was, who were they fighting?
Yeah, and it was like, basically a colonial.
Who was in Africa at that point?
Yeah, and it was all just different nations that have been colonized by. It was like a little proxy like theater, essentially. I guess that's probably.
So your
Yeah.
uncle, great
Yeah.
uncle, he landed in Sicily.
Yeah, and so the way the Canadian troops were kind of organized is all the regiments were not drawn from like different areas. They were all drawn from like single communities. So he was with the Hasty Peas, which were from Prince Edward County, where you and I have been.
Yep. Fantastic wine.
Yeah, and it's weirdly that's the thing that unites the county and Sicily is fantastic small wineries. But
now it does.
now it does. Yeah, not back in the day. And my dad was close to his uncles, and I've always heard I haven't heard like full stories, but you just kind of know roughly what's happened. But
It's the ones that you grow up with, and you sort of always hear like partial sort of sides and stories.
and everyone kind of takes for granted, what's going on. And then the other thing is because you've grown up hearing this and like having barely met my dad's uncles or have only met some of them and all when they were old men, or hearing about them and imagining old men because they were my dad's uncles. And I'd always imagined him being an old man. And so like it sounds stupid, but when you're a kid, you just
visualize these things. Yeah.
So basically when we were planning this trip, we realized at some point that it would be that we don't know exactly where this Uncle Fred was, but because of knowing what company he was in, we had a pretty good idea about one of the most famous kind of battles they were involved in Sicily, which took place on Mount Asoro. And there was like a few reasons why it was easy to track down where that was. And we realized if we were driving from Catania to Palermo, it would actually be pretty easy to just go a bit off the beaten and try and go to Mount Asoro and just kind of see. And we were thinking about it. We were in the early parts of thinking about it. My dad messaged me and was basically like, sort of, if you do, even just in Sicily generally, because I don't think he knew we were as far along in planning this as we were, spare a thought for, great Uncle Fred, who would have been like 21 or 22 when he was there. And I just had never thought of this basically like farm boy coming across to this. Like it was crazy for us to be there, and we've grown up in this generation of like Ryanair and budget flights and all that stuff. And to think of ending up in Sicily on this crazy kind of...
I think it's still a symptom of North America, though, that it's not something that even to this day most people would have done at that age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like my parents are amazing travelers and they love Italy, and this will be... we're bringing them, but...
There's a lot of people at that age still that have not visited, like, Sicily or...
A lot of places.
Like this, just because of the distances.
Yeah. But I also think of myself at 21 or 22, and I was basically a tadpole. Like,
imagine fighting at that
I know,
age.
right? And
That's
then
the crazy
the
thing.
more we learned about it as well, it's like all the Canadian, all of their big kind of... Because it was basically a naval landing mostly in Sicily. All their big shit sunk essentially, so they had no vehicles, so they were running around and they had to keep up with the Americans and the English who had vehicles. So they were like fast sprint in August, which must have been like 40 degrees Celsius with all your stuff, and you have to run as fast as a truck, like all of Sicily, like a complete maniac. And imagine that.
Your uncle ran into trouble when he was like sort of making his way through Sicily.
I think
it was the battle, like the gun installment. That's what.
So that was why Mount Asoro turned into a thing. Is there was like a gun nest at the top of it, and as soon as they got near it, I think their two kind of top commanding officers got killed pretty immediately, and they realized they couldn't get any further unless they took this out. And one side of the mountain is basically a sheer cliff, and the other side is not a sheer cliff, but still a total bummer. And the thing the gun is pointing down. So it was, it's one of those like there are so many stories like this in that whole war. Yeah. And it's just because there's a personal connection that I even know about it. But something like someone should make a movie or something, like a kind of an epic,
so they made
crazy
their way up the
cliff part at night. And we're successful. And so we decided, okay, we'll try and go see Mount Asoro. And we didn't really know how to do it. So we thought, okay, we'll put in, there's a town of Asoro. We'll
Because
go
we had
there.
a GPS with our car. So
Yeah.
we got to the road that we thought we had to go up. And
Yeah.
then we were just sort of, we went on a couple of weird roads where we ended up at a rubbish dump.
Yeah,
Remember
it
that
was
one?
weird. Well, it wasn't so much a rubbish dump as someone had dumped rubbish all over the road, and that caused the road to stop being a road. Like, it was quite weird.
But there was like a B road, even over here. It was like a tiny B road. And
Yeah,
we were like, okay,
yeah.
this seems like, and it was all sort of broken up. It hadn't been looked after either.
Yeah, it was like,
and then there was a bunch of rubbish at the side of the road.
yeah, it was weird.
So we were like, maybe this is not
Yeah.
around here. Like,
And-
this is it there. So we're like,
Yeah,
maybe
well-
we're just like, well, it's, that's it there. We'll sort of just head on to Palermo and
Yeah.
we'll say that we saw it from a distance. But
Yeah.
I still wanted to push forward because I know it was like your great uncle.
Yeah, and it
stuff.
was
And,
worth coming that far. Can I just say one thing as well, which is like I thought we would try and look for the town and then we'd have to be like, where's this hill, and like have a bimble. But it was as soon as we turned off the main road, the first thing you see is this Mount Asoro, exactly from the aspect of the only photo I'd seen of it. So it was like, oh, that's that.
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely that. So that was, yeah. But then it was, yeah, we got up. We were like, we don't know how, like, can we drive up it? Like, what's going to happen? And then we got to the rubbish road and then we went back and then you continue.
Well, it was like a switchback road on the way up.
Yeah.
All the way up. And it wasn't like, it didn't look like a mountain because it says like it's Mount Asoro.
Yeah.
But
it's such a hilly landscape. It's just kind of one of many.
there's a lot of places, especially in sort of folklore like that, in sort of Greek mythology, Roman as well,
Yeah.
and all these types of places that have like mountains, but it's not really a mountain.
Yeah, not like we think of them.
But when we got to the top, it was fucking high.
It was, yeah.
So high.
It was like kind of, yeah, you could really, yeah, it was a weird thing because it didn't really stand out until you got up there and then you felt
And
like
then
you were
you
way
saw
above.
It looked right down onto the valley, so you could imagine someone like traveling through there with their sort of commanders and the army just making their way across this valley, and then if there's a machine gun mount up there and it just like blasted, it was like 50 cal maybe down onto
I don't know.
It's crazy.
But it would be just like, it would just be like God zapping you at that, because I mean, it's the perfect place to be, really. It should by all accounts have been a much worse story for the Canadians.
But we couldn't go all the way up because the only road up there was a fucking traffic. There was like traffic like stops.
Yeah.
And there was road works as well.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get all the way
Yeah, so it was
through.
fully closed. And we found a bone, which was weird.
I saw like a bone that was suspicious, and I was like, right, we're
Time to
gonna
go.
leave.
Yeah, because it was there was some like kind of burnt pat. Like it got eerie.
It was like
it
the
was
Hills Have Eyes. Have you ever
It
seen
was.
that movie?
Yeah, I have not, but I understand the
There were some
reference. Yeah,
council workers like working on the road, and they looked a bit sort of.
I never even
No,
saw
no,
anybody.
no,
I never.
no.
Yeah, it was like these people, and it was kind of the mob. It's like if these people's roads aren't being maintained, like maybe they've like they don't have the right cousin in the mafia or whatever. Like, what's going on? We never found the town. I have like, it must be back there somewhere, but we never found Asoro. But no, it was a wonderful. I felt very good to be there,
good.
and yeah, it's funny because there's nothing to see. There's no like monument or whatever, and I mean, Uncle Fred made it home, so it's not even really like you're paying your respects or whatever. But it just felt good to be like, because we can't even like 100% know he was there, but
Yeah.
it felt good to try.
Yeah, it felt
Yeah.
like it was something that we sort of did for both of us and your family as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it was great. Like, that was something we wouldn't have seen that part of the country otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Because there was a bunch of sheep, remember, on the road.
Oh, yeah. We'd been like whining the whole time because we never saw any animals at all, like no livestock or anything, and so much farming. And then we finally found every sheep in Sicily on the road.
The drive from Catania to Palermo is just unbelievable.
That was one of my favorite, because then you get to the top, like the north coast, and it's just like,
Beautiful.
it's so beautiful. It's almost stupid. Like, it's like, could you be any more beautiful? Like, go on.
Once we got to that north coast and we traversed that westwards to Palermo,
Yeah.
it was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I highly sort of, anyone that has thought about it, it's just like an amazing place, and it's a mishmash of everything that you can think of.
Yeah, and it's very distinctly, it's really Sicilian. It's not Italian. Yeah, which is interesting. And I mentioned actually because we're going back in April, as we've mentioned, but we're bringing my parents as well, and they've traveled a ton in Italy, and my dad speaks Italian, and it'll be interesting to see.
I've never seen your dad speak Italian. Does he speak Italian?
He does speak it. Well, he learned Italian. He's not super in practice, but I'm sure you'll be hearing some Italian. Yeah.
Arrivederci.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna ask him all the things when we're driving around. Just to annoy him. What does that mean?
That'll annoy me too, because that's all I want you to do, is because I want to be Hermione Granger and tell you. So
Leviosa.
it's Latin.
Is it?
Bad Latin.
Well, Leviosa.
All the like most of the spells in it are based on Latin,
No
but it's like
way.
not good Latin.
It sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leviosa. What's Leviosa?
Like to lift. Like think of like levitate. Like
Okay,
yeah. Like it's
levitation.
not like it doesn't work for grammar or whatever, but that's
Levitation,
the
my
roots.
dear Watson.
Yeah. Yes, my dear Watson.
So yeah, like this kind of leads us on to another topic, obviously, with just basically with the DNA stuff that we did recently.
That was going to be such an elegant segue. Huh.
I couldn't think
Still
of the
good,
words.
but yeah.
Yeah, so going on from like the history of Sicily to our own histories, like our genetic histories. 23andMe. Most people have probably heard about it, but it is a sort of it's from the Netherlands, the company.
At least their European operations are based in the Netherlands. I'm not sure
So it's
if
one of
that's
these
where they were
companies
founded.
that you send your spit and they put the thing through the thingamajigger and then get it out the back of the
Science, bitch. Yeah.
and then like it breaks down your DNA for you. So for Christmas, Laura bought me, because I've wanted to do this forever. I think both of us really did, and I was surprised for Christmas. With Laura, got me the kit to spit into for 23andMe, and also she'd bought herself one.
Because I didn't want to be left out. Happy Christmas, Laura.
I'm not Laura.
I knew you'd want to know my one too. So,
Yeah, I was so chuffed that you did that, because it was I think it's one of the most like one of the best presents I've probably ever had.
Oh, that makes me happy. Yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer, but because we've been talking about doing it for years, and it was like I was sort of like a bit paranoid about it, and then I finally kind of figured out how I could.
Because we'd spoken about it, and I think we've talked about it before on this, and we were sort of just a bit hung up on the sort of them sharing your sort of genetic material, to third party companies.
Yeah,
like
and
they do with your browsing history. Like they can do that with your sort of your spit, and then sort of see if you've got certain diseases or whatever.
Yeah, and it was about kind of figuring out like what stuff about this am I just being reflexively paranoid about, but actually stopping myself from like learning and like participating in science as well. And then what things are like reasonable concerns.
Like leading up to that, there was a few companies that had been done for sort of that as well. Like they'd sort of leak the information.
Yeah, well, there's at least one in the States, which is like not one of the main, because I think the main two are 23andMe and the Ancestry.com one. And this was, I think, another one. Yeah. But they had shared, I don't know the entire inning and outing of it, but they'd shared their genetic information that they'd acquired with, I guess, the FBI. Wow. And that led to a serial killer being caught after a really long time because his like cousin or something had given DNA to this service. And
how do you know about this?
Do you want me to actually advertise a really famous podcast on your podcast? Because I will.
Your dog. We heard you like podcasts.
Your dog. We heard you like. Yeah, actually, the reason why we've been on hiatus is I've been too busy listening to My Favorite Murder, and there's been no time to actually podcast. No.
So if you're a girl and you're sort of like that type of thing,
you could be a boy too, but it is a lot of women.
There's no way that any guys listen to My Favorite Murder.
There are some guys who listen to My Favorite Murder.
Name one.
Stephen Ray Morris, who's the guy who helps them record. He's their Jamie.
He
Mr. Young
has to
Jimmy.
because he's part of the
He
fucking
loves
process.
it. He loves it.
He has to. He's getting paid by them.
I don't think he's getting paid. No, he might be now, but he sure wasn't. But my thinking about that is like, oh, if my fourth cousin is a serial killer,
Yeah.
like they should stop being a serial killer or they should get caught. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm not doing anything. And like, if we want to really go hypothetical and there's some sort of dystopian future where they're prosecuting people for like liking panda bears or something, then I'm screwed. But obviously we'd all be screwed anyway. So that's like an acceptable risk.
Yeah.
Whereas in that case, it's like, hey, like sounds like a good thing. Like that's almost a reason to give DNA.
Yeah.
Not that 23andMe
I'll give
have
all
done
the
that.
DNA.
Calm down. I still really wouldn't be that comfortable if I knew 23andMe were giving that stuff to the government. And as far as anybody knows, they're
It's not
not.
even about comfortableness. It's just wrong. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't be doing that.
Well, and the thing, like, as far as I understand it, that this company who did this, it's part of their fine print. So you need to look out for yourself when you're doing stuff like that as well.
That's the
And
great
like
thing about
go
this
with a
day
more
and
expensive
age.
one.
That's the great thing about this day and age is because those type of companies that work in those ways just won't survive because it'll be outed and no one will use them.
Yeah, that's like the good part of capitalism is like, hey, are you betraying our customers?
Yeah.
But then we say that and like we all still use Facebook and we're not even paying for it and we know they're betraying us. So
I think Facebook's slightly different because it's a commodity as opposed to sort of, it's a utility almost.
well, and it also makes sense because it's like, I'm just playing back what I was just saying, but it's like, oh, we're not giving them money. Oh, well, this is how they're generating money. Like they are a company.
Yeah, they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
There are like questionable things.
Yeah.
Like real questionable
There are.
things.
But they're also, if you don't like it, don't use it.
Yeah.
Like.
But at the same time, they own like WhatsApp.
And it
They
is
own Instagram.
everything.
They
Yeah.
own Instagram.
It is quite creepy.
Do you just not be on the internet?
Yeah. And I mean, if it's really like, that's the kind of the risk reward thing. It's like, hey, if that's really important to you, get off the internet. And same with this 23andMe thing. I decided I'd rather know the information they could tell me and like participate in research as well.
The biggest question for me with it was because when I'd seen friends doing it before, when they were posting the little snippet of the information that they had received, it was like just a really sort of basic form of information, and I was like, are you paying like £70 just to have a really sort of watered down explanation that you can probably find out yourself? And a sort of very basic thing. And I was like, I'm not sure what the back end of this process is because it's not one you can sort of post. You're not going to post your whole page from your ancestry part of it. So I was very pleasantly surprised when we did it and I received it, and then Laura eventually received hers.
Mine took way longer because my DNA is way fancier than yours. No.
Yeah, like I
Not a thing.
received my email like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no way. But even though we sent our DNA tests off together
At the same
it
time.
doesn't mean anything to the company. Like it's not,
No,
they
it's
don't
like
know we're-
my lab tech was like on holiday or something.
Yeah.
But
they don't know we're married because it's not.
No, we didn't like link
No.
our samples or
Yeah,
whatever. I set up
exactly.
different accounts for us and
So it was just an individual sort of thing. And then I got my, like I had the emails and I had my results back, and I was like so pumped for this to like I wanted to hear and see what it was.
Well, like up until
And
that
then
point, it had been like step in step as well. Like
Yeah.
we'd gotten the same notifications at the same time, and then suddenly yours was like, "Oh, you're done," and I was like,
we got like 2 emails that were like slightly different,
yeah,
and then I was like, this may take up to like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, it's done.
yeah. You got yours, super quickly, but
Yeah.
you very, very kindly and nobly waited
It
until I
was
got
so
mine. I
hard.
know
It was one of the hardest things I had to do in the last 2 months.
Wow,
Just
interesting.
having to
Trying
like
think about
not look at my results.
that. Yeah, you
But
did good. I'm proud.
Eventually, you got yours.
I did.
Yeah, I got like a drunken message from you.
Yeah,
and,
because I was on my
"Ah."
my staff night out for for my work, and it was like, of course, that would be the time I would get it because it's like
I had a funny feeling that would happen then.
I did too,
I
and
knew
it
it
was
was gonna-
actually good because I was like, even if I wanted to look at this, I can't read because I drank wine for 11 hours.
I'm
So
trying to nurse you in the bed and not read stuff.
yeah,
And since like when you got home, obviously I was like, right, we're gonna look it up in the morning.
Yeah.
Coffee and reading these results. And then
And
you were
like,
like,
it
yeah,
helped
okay.
me keep it together on the night out as well, because I was like, no, I have to be able to read in the morning. I can't be like on a cellular level dying.
Yeah. But yeah, so we read our results, and there's always been a sort of question mark on your family, like what sort of maybe like varying ethnicities you might or might not have in your family.
Yeah, because there's
I was excited about like you getting your results, because that was the biggest question.
Yeah. There's a few sort of dead ends in the family tree because of various circumstances.
What did you think, leading, like before you knew the results, what did you think was going to show up?
So I thought I would be pretty much straight up like British and Irish with some sort of weird ethnic X factor. I'm not even sure on like which side, because it could be on my mom's side or it could be on my dad's side. But just based on how everybody looks.
What it would have been the X factor?
No idea.
So like it could have been Portuguese.
I would have thought there's definitely like an African vibe on my mom's side, but there's a lot of quite Asian looking people as well.
That's what I was going to say.
And then my dad's quite ethnically ambiguous. Like to me, there could almost be like
a werewolf.
What's it, like Persian or something like green eye but black hair, like something. Yeah, or even like Native American, like something like. Of course, everyone wishes they were Native American. Elizabeth Warren, but I thought that we knew the European stuff.
Was the girl that says she identified as Native American eventually. But
do you mean Elizabeth Warren, the American?
She said she was Native American.
Yeah.
And then like Trump called her like Pocahontas. Like
like a couple times.
Really terribly. Yeah. Like just like he could have done it in a better way.
Well, it's just like, go on, be an idiot. We all know you're an idiot. Yeah.
That's offensive to people who are like Native American to say like, well, Pocahontas was a real native.
Well, it's just like a stupid thing to say. It's like, whether like it's just like, come on, man. But like all you have to do is not say that.
She's not a caricature, even though she eventually became one. She was a real person.
Yeah.
So whether he meant the actual
do you think
cartoon,
he knows she was a real person?
Probably
no.
Not. Probably not. He's probably taken it from anyway, she says she was like, she has like that's how she got her scholarship.
Well, it's been like, there's some dodgy stuff about that for sure.
University, was it Harvard or something?
I can't remember.
Where they like love if you've got some Native American in you, and she pushed that on her CV to get into this university. Then she got in, and then later on she said something about being Native American.
Yeah.
And then they did the DNA test.
And she was like, it was so small.
0.1%.
And it is still in there, to be fair. And we were kind of talking about it, like, how does stuff get like inflated in family stories? But
the thing that was funny about that was Joe Rogan had more Native American in him than she did. Or was it
more like Sub-Saharan African or something?
Yeah, totally,
yeah. But like, more than African she had Native American.
She was like,
which is still like, I'd rather her than Trump any day. And I don't think she knew it wasn't true. Like it's easy to see how this stuff gets confusing, but it was pretty funny. But I also think it was honest of her to still publish the results as well, even though it was like.
But then she said to say like she was like trying to like get Trump to pay like the money
for what?
Because Trump said if she was Native American, he would pay money for something.
Oh, like I missed all that. I don't know anything about that.
To something, and when she got her results back, she was like, "Look, Trump, you have to like you're ignoring me now. You pay up or whatever."
Well, if he didn't set conditions with her, then.
But she was less than what would be.
Yeah, but it still wasn't zero. So.
But it's nothing.
Oh no, but I can see like
she got.
I'd say that's like
based on that she was half Native American or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't know the fine print of that, but it's like if he's made a bet and he hasn't done his T's and C's, then the fact that she's not zero.
But technically, like just morally.
Yeah, I don't think she's right to
use that as a crux. Like there's people who are like Native American that can't get in these positions because she has this like, edge on people because she's like white.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's like, not really fair. No. Oh yeah, totally. But that's not the same thing as whatever bet she had with Trump.
And especially the one where she got into university. Like
no, that's dodgy, but like you can't go back and how do you go back and undo that? Like,
well, you don't do it.
well, she should donate a lot of money to that scholarship is what she should do. But she might not have known as well. Like, I don't want to.
Well, she did not know though.
Yeah, but she could have been told by her family or something. Like, I don't want to argue this on her behalf when I don't really know. Yeah. But it's like talking about our family, and there's stuff now with these DNA things that I was sure I knew about my family that now everybody's like, what about that then? Yeah.
So what was the thing that you thought you were going to find on there?
Well, I thought I would be, do you need some wine? I thought I would be
seeing
lot.
As I am king, you can.
Oh, well, we're going to get around to that and spend 20 minutes on it.
For anyone that's listening, I have the grin of a Cheshire cat just now because of my results.
He's actually inherited Ireland. No, I thought it would be, this is going to be the whitest sentence ever. Everyone get ready. I thought I would be more ethnically diverse, but less diverse within Europe, which is it's kind of silly, but so the main things I knew about my family were like English, Scottish, French, Irish, Dutch. And we've certainly got, so I'm going to find my actual thing. I've got.
So for sure you knew that there was some Scottish in there.
Yeah, like we know that one for sure, because my grandfather was born in Scotland.
And you've got some Canadian in there.
Yes, which doesn't show up weirdly. And if anyone can tell us about when the New World starts showing up in your DNA, please tell us, because we can't understand it. We're not smart enough. So I am 64% British and Irish. I am 15 big chunk. And pretty much what we thought, although slightly different regions than we thought, but that could be the whims of understanding DNA. 15.8% French and German. We knew the French, but this is coming up as Swiss.
Yeah.
Which is, and I have like distant cousins in Switzerland still.
Through the process of doing this, which is an amazing, like I really think it's an amazing thing, 23andMe, because of the back end of it on their website.
Yeah,
it's so well done, and the breakdown and the sort of just easy access, like press a button and you've got like your family tree modeled out.
Yeah, it's and almost
put, like your potential third and fourth cousins in place, because you can actually see who are third and fourth cousins in one of the relative buttons. And then if you go to your family tree, there's a button you can press, and then it generates your family tree and then puts it into order.
Yeah, like what it's predicting. Yeah,
and it's a computer program that's doing it, obviously, but it's amazing.
It's beautifully, in terms of the actual like interface, it's so easy to understand and it's so well designed. 3.7 Scandinavian, which we have no idea about, and no idea where that comes from. 3.7. And then 12.7 broadly Northwestern European, which could be the Dutch people, or could be people who were lying about being Dutch and God knows where they're from. 2.4% Southern European, which we had no idea about, including Spanish/Portuguese, Italian, and broadly European, whatever that is. And then I am 0.3% banana or onion or something, because that's just not coming up.
10%.
But so basically a few things we thought we knew for sure missing, and a few things that we have no idea about that aren't insignificant in terms of numbers. Are like, who the heck is that?
That's the funnest thing about this whole process, is to sort of like guesstimate what happened and sort of go back and where and which side of the family and who might have had this in their DNA, like, a bit Scandinavian or it's so intriguing,
because it could be a really good reason. Like, it could be something that you can look up and be like, oh well, because my dad was looking up like, oh well, Italians were working on this tunnel to Switzerland, so they could have, my 0.5% Italian could have come up that way. Or it could be some random thing, like it could be just one person, like it's not necessarily it's just fascinating. And it also could be like, it could be wrong and they could perfect it as well. Like, is the thing. You can't have a total.
Totally tantalizingly close. Like, when you're looking at it and you're just like, it's just out of your generations in terms of like censuses and whatever. Some of them. So you're just like, and it depends on who's taking the test as well. Like,
that's the thing too. Yeah. The more, and that's kind of part of my reasoning for taking it, and it's such a good sales bill, but it's like the more people that do this, the better it is. And that is how it works. Yeah.
So yeah, you got that, and I got. So leading into this, I just wondered. All I wanted to know is how much sort of Neanderthal DNA I would have had, and secondly, I thought maybe that there would be some sort of Viking blood. So my report came back, just the sort of general breakdown was 89% British and Irish, like heavily British and Irish.
Yeah, kind of unsurprisingly.
But it was mostly Scotland and Ireland, the ones that comes up when you go into the sort of the report. 3.3% French and German.
Which is surprising.
So it would have been that sort of Gallic era and like the Charlemagne,
Yeah,
like
but that's really, like, this goes back about 8 generations. That would be a lot earlier than 8 generations. So it could just be like a knock-on effect from that, but it wouldn't be.
I think, that's the knock-on effect.
Yeah.
And then I have 1.7% Scandinavian, which I think is probably on point for a lot of Scottish people because of the effect the Vikings had on Scotland when they came over to Scotland and they sort of spread their DNA.
But also surprised me because I'm more Scandinavian than you are. Okay. And I figured you'd be. I didn't think I'd have any, first of all, but just like it's just the cosmetics, but it's like you're blondie and light-eyed and stuff, and I'm a little shark-eyed weirdo.
But it could be that, because obviously blue eyes is something that came around later on and whatever. So maybe we don't know if like the Vikings were brown-eyed, or whatever.
Yeah, and it's also like I think DNA-wise, brown eyes are dominant. So the fact that I have Southern Europeans and whatever else in there.
But it's an amazing thing to do. Just the ease of it is just unbelievable. Like it's so fascinating that you can spit in a cup.
Yeah.
And they're able to tell this all about you.
It's crazy. It's
science fiction.
Well, we were talking, like, because I was rewatching House recently, and there's one episode where they're talking about getting a DNA test on someone for paternity, and it's going to cost them $11,000. And it's like, okay, so I know prices are inflated because it's like the American healthcare system and it's at a hospital, but like anybody with any disposable income can actually do this. And like to think of people who are like adopted or who have weird stuff in their family, like to be able to, it's very democratizing. Like you can actually figure out like what your ingredients are. And
it's only going to get like easier.
It's going to get better and it's going to get cheaper. Exactly. Cheaper. Yeah. And it behooves them to make it cheaper because the more people that do it, the better their system is.
Exactly.
So they should almost give people grants to do it who can't, like people who are in foster care or something like that. Yeah. Like,
or people who are adopted.
Yeah.
Like older.
Yeah, that's
and adopted.
A better way of saying it. Because people in foster care are there for lots of reasons and not just because they don't have parents.
But one of my third cousins is like the most related to me, like the highest in terms of percentage, like the DNA that we share. And she, I think, was adopted. Like her mum was adopted, so she doesn't have any history.
That was the Irish one, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
like she doesn't have anything past her mum.
Yeah,
because her mum was adopted.
Yeah,
and her DNA is like linking her up with all these people. It's amazing.
And it'd be like back a little, not even that long ago, to be adopted or figure out you're adopted, and if you want to know, because also the thing is like you are who you are. It doesn't make really any difference what the ingredients are.
No,
but I can see wanting to know.
And it's good for the culture, like the global sort of view, to see that we're all just like a melting pot.
Yeah.
Like a smorgasbord of people in different countries, and it's all the same. We've been to all these different places.
Yeah.
Your ancestors are not just from one place.
And especially now when, like, I mean, in the UK, this is a whole can of worms, but Brexit and the recent announcement re-immigration and it's like, what are you trying to preserve? Like there's not this homogenous thing that, like, again, looking at my family, but it's like we all thought we were basically from here, and it turns out we're from all over Europe. How did that happen? Like,
it just boils down to the economy, and what is the economy? Money. Like that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they're trying to protect.
Yeah. But it's also it's gone beyond that because it's become, I think, a lot more about xenophobia than it is about the economy. Like they're absolutely kneecapping the economy right now.
For certain people, they've been told that it is foreigners that are doing this to them. But I think the government isn't xenophobic. I think they're economy orientated and they're trying to cut out the parts, which might be racist, that they think are sort of like stopping them from making money.
I sort of agree. Like, I don't think that the higher ups' main motives are racist. I think that's how they've sold it to people who aren't doing
like
well.
Joe Public thinks it's to do with this guy down the road.
Like mythical people are stealing their jobs. Yeah. But I don't think that they're not racist, the higher ups. I don't see what's in it for them. Like, this can't have, unless it's like a much more sinister plot than I can even imagine. I don't see what's in it for them to like completely destabilize the economy in this way.
One of the greatest, like, sort of, I saw a video on, and I think it was based in the UK, and they were doing the genetic test. I don't know if it was Ancestry.com
we
or
watched
if it
this,
was 23andMe. But they got this bunch of group of people that were completely different on every scale. There was someone that was sort of very like right wing, and sort of, some would say sort of racist. There was someone from like, white power and in the UK and whatever.
Yeah.
And then they sort of get the
There's
results,
like a Middle Eastern
and they find
thing
out,
as well.
They
Yeah.
find out that they've got like African heritage. Most people do, but like recent sort of African heritage, and it's sort of,
that was a really good ad.
It's good because it shows like you're like where you are is no consequence of who you are. Like you're only in this place and time because of a bunch of things that happened in the past. Yeah. Through different regions. Like, these are not real things. Yeah, and it's just fleeting. Like, the fact you're in the UK just now doesn't mean that you're, from this place. Yeah, exactly. And that, like, obviously you don't even have to go back that far in history and things get really muddy. And our borders aren't even the same if you go back. Like, the idea that the borders we have now, I'm sure we've talked about this before, are some sort of like historically grounded given is just complete nonsense. It's a fallacy. Like, you go back to the 1800s in Europe and they have completely different borders than they do now. And that's really not that long ago. Especially with a lot of like so-called now European countries, like they've all changed over time, like a lot. Yeah. Or even names. Yeah. Just all like, or even the concept of having countries in and of itself is like a very modern concept. Like, it's not, and it hasn't gone that well, guys. Like, it hasn't really worked out super well. We don't need to commit to it. No. At this point, it could be a weird time in our lives as a globe. It's something that we sell ourselves to feel like, it's like people who are religious, like they're selling themselves that because they want to feel like they're special. Yeah. They want to feel like there's a bigger plan for everything. And it's kind of similar with people that sort of are nationalist. Yeah. You're selling that to yourself so you feel like you have a place in the world that's yours, and it's something that you can sort of defend for some reason. Yeah. And something that's like bigger than you that you can feel good about if you don't feel good about yourself. Yeah. And also as the governments that organize these things, like, it's way easier to hide how much you're sucking if it's over other borders. Like, you can hide your debt a lot better, for instance, if you're not looking at the world, or even things like countries who have to send their garbage to other countries to dispose of it. It's like, you can't, it's like the whole... Was it Singapore that does that? Or who was I'm pretty sure Canada does it. There was an Asian... Or was doing it. There was sort of a foreign Asian country that the UK was sending their trash to, and they stopped doing it. Oh, I've heard, because like, UK trash was too gross, essentially. Like, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. Like, how massive carbon footprint have you got if you're shipping fucking like trash over? We're the tiniest country. The UK is like a little freckle. Like, it's so silly you'd have so much waste. Like, I get that you can't put it anywhere because you're small, but like, there shouldn't be that much of it. It's so silly that you have to put it in the ground still. Yeah, like, it is really weird when you think about it. Weird. Like, it's like they're still not thinking about it that like landfills is a real stupid thing.
Yeah.
Like, we have to work past it, and we have to figure out something other than just burying it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very
Well, it's like
old
it's like
notion to bury our...
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work when there's 7 billion people in the world.
No, and it's like we were just talking about this today, but like the Monica's closet and Friends, it's like all the mess goes in there. It's fine. Or like being a little kid and like hiding your report card if you did bad.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a permanent solution, right? Like
It's just that you're out of sight and out of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
At this time.
Yeah. And it's like honestly, and I'm sure a lot of people of our generation and maybe other generations are going through this right now. And especially in this part of the UK where our recycling system totally sucks.
Yeah.
Like every time I go to buy something or throw something out, and I should be doing this, like this is the right thing to be doing, I have just a complete crisis about what's going to happen with it and where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Like you get almost paralyzed. Like even shopping, you get paralyzed because you're like, can I get,
but that
like, what can I do?
That's just that is how we should all feel like when we're consuming.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get rid of this and how is it going to affect
For
the planet? And
but it's a lot more productive if we have any agency in how that happens.
Yeah.
Whereas here we really don't.
especially Scotland. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
one of the
yeah.
big sort of misnomers is that Scotland and the rest of the UK, like when you put your recycling in the recycling bin, that it gets recycled.
Yeah.
It all just gets thrown on the heap.
That bums me out so much. Is that really true?
It is, yeah.
So why do they have recycling bins?
Sorry, if you could, I'll probably edit this out, but we're currently dog sitting,
Yeah.
so there is a little like murmur of a dog in the background.
Should probably rescue her. Sounds not happy.
Well, we'll give it we'll do another.
Yeah.
15
Not
minutes
immediately.
or
I'm enjoying this. But yeah. Oh, poor baby.
Yeah. So
She has FOMO. She's not for everyone who's listening. She's not actually upset. Nothing's wrong with her.
Yeah.
She's had food. She's been out. She's had
she's the
snuggles.
most well-looking, like taken after dog
Yeah,
ever.
but she has FOMO,
anxiety,
and
like
she's worried
severe
we're
anxiety.
having fun without her.
Uh.
And if we come have fun with her, she'll be worried that she's doing something wrong by having fun.
Yeah.
So, and she's not religious. It's just a thing.
She's not Catholic.
Poor baby.
So that is one of the things I worry about severely in terms of protecting the environment is landfill. Like we're still just heaping this stuff in the earth and then just digging over the top of it and acting like there's nothing wrong.
Yeah,
It's
like,
kinda
just bury it.
it's kind of like nuclear waste.
Yeah.
Or like a nuclear power plant, it's going to be areas that you can't use for thousands of years because there's so much rubbish underneath it.
Or stuff we're letting degrade now because we haven't figured out how to dispose of it.
Yeah.
Like I might even have talked about it on the podcast, but the nuclear submarines that haven't been properly or totally or at all decommissioned, that they don't know really how to decommission, and so they're just or lost. Well, the thing is, like, there's like they've just parked them up for now, and we'll just hope we can figure out what to do. Like,
there's 500 currently around the UK.
Is that the number?
Yeah, crazy.
That's madness.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and for like to fall apart or to be stolen or like you name it, to be trespassed on by teenagers who are partying and then grow 18 arms.
Well, the submarine.
Yes. Have you ever seen an 18-armed submarine? It's real scary.
But yes, that is something that I think there has to be a better way of doing it. You know, even though it feels like a lot of recycling is just lip service because ultimately it goes into landfill.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way around it. So there should be something else that's in place that's going to do.
I think one of the main things isn't so much how we dispose of stuff, it's not having the stuff in the first place. Like, and it's a thing people are obviously onto now, which is not having these like single-use plastics. I think there's a lot more to be done there than there is to do with how we actually dispose of it.
We have there's a place, or there's two places now in Edinburgh that is sort of like a non-plasticky place.
Yeah, the bulk.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, there have been bulk barns and stuff like around since I was a kid, and it's just, it doesn't it's the convenience. Like people don't use them.
No.
Like it's not a new idea even. I mean, it's great having them now around here because I associate that a lot more with North America. Like our wonderful pistachios that we got for my trip back from my mum. That's from a bulk barn.
No.
And she's been going there since I was a kid.
Right. Bloody Canadians.
But it's not like, I mean, it's way more convenient to just get your thingy and yeah.
But I don't know, like what they have to come up with something because if it continues to be like a population increase, and there's debate about that obviously because in the sort of the developed world, there's less people sort of being born as well, and in the developing countries, they're making up for it. So there's sort of some people think there's going to be a decline in the population. Some people think there's going to be a spike.
I was reading a thing about the
Can I finish that?
Oh yeah, sorry.
But there has to be something done about the trash issue because some places don't even have infrastructure in place to deal with it. We do, but it's dealing with it is just burying it. Like it's so funny. It's like, if you've got emotional issues, you just bury it. But
exactly.
What do we say about that? It's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's not healthy to bury your issues.
No.
Guess what? We're burying trash.
Yeah, we are. No, that's exactly. And that's the best thing people are doing. Like that's like the really expensive thing people do, or ship it to another country. That's the other one.
That is the stupid. That is one of the most stupid things. Like if you can't deal with it, don't produce that much trash.
And actually you're doubling down on it then if you're shipping it to another country because it's the carbon footprint of moving it to another country. It's like, come on, man. It's very childish.
I didn't know it was a thing.
It's so childish.
Shipped it.
Yeah. Yep.
My idea is like they should send it to the sun somehow. Like if they
but
just
what if we
fly
fuck up the sun then? Like we don't even know the implications
no, the
of that.
sun's so big and so like.
I'm kind of devil's advocate here, but it's like the sun's just like
it's
shipping it
trash.
off somewhere else. Then
like if you just like fire it on a rocket.
But then what's the carbon footprint of like sending a rocket? Like it's.
True.
What's a good way of doing it? I don't know. I feel like it's
if
not. I feel like it's like
teleportation.
nanotechnology is like a way of like disassembling and reassembling stuff on like a particle level and other stuff.
But not on a nano level though. How can you reassemble particles on the nano level?
Well, I mean, nanotechnology is hypothetical, pretty much. So
but it's not. Yeah.
If you're just like reshaping stuff into other stuff or like disassembling stuff into
sense.
raw material for making stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's just like incredibly efficient recycling.
Yeah, and I think I think it's a big one is thinking about how you consume things. Even just going to the shop with a bag that you've already bought, these things are help a little by little.
Yeah, and it's so basic. And I think I think there are still people who are cranky about doing that, which is honestly nuts.
Because we're barely doing anything in this country. Like, when I lived in Austria for 6 months, you want to talk about people that fucking recycle.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You couldn't even put like tea bags in the regular trash bag. It had to be in a separate place. You had 5 different like recycling outlets,
Yeah.
And
you got to do it properly.
And you had to put it all in individual spots or you get fucked. I had a guy that was constantly shouting at me to put stuff in the right bin.
Wolfgang. Yeah. Well, it's also the like at least I don't totally know how it works in Toronto because I haven't lived there properly, but there's definitely in Canada like a clear bags vibe. So it's like, it's almost like you're being publicly shamed if you're doing it wrong, which I think is good. Like it's not that like, it's the like sacrifice to benefit ratio where like you don't actually have to, you have to remember to bring your bag. Like what a shame. Like remember to bring your bag. It's not that big of a deal. Like it's okay. It's going to be okay. Or just like being responsible for the stuff you're consuming. Like convenience is one thing. And it's also like, you don't want to, if people are in like economically tight circumstances and maybe they're less able to like plan or budget in a way that will help them to be as environmentally friendly as they could be. Like there's no point shaming people for things that are beyond their control. I mean, it's the same with like diet nutrition. It's like, don't yell at poor people about being vegan. Like they're just trying to get by. Work on the people who can afford to first. I was going to say, I was reading a thing. This is dark, and I'm sure a thought that's adored amongst 22-year-olds who love Nietzsche, but I know. No, but it's like, it's kind of like lamely dark. Okay. it's like people always say like we need a new plague, but it's like when the Black Plague ran through Europe in the medieval periods, it got rid of so many people that it actually made people's lives a lot better. Like it is just what happens. It did, like overall.
Yeah. I heard that actually.
Yeah, and you wonder, not that should happen, but that we're gonna reach some sort of natural.
There's going to be
plateau
that sort of eradicates
civilization-wise.
sort of brings the balance back because it's a natural thing to happen.
And it might not even be one thing; it could be a few things.
Coronavirus.
It's not gonna be coronavirus, but not this year anyway. Maybe next year.
Well, we better.
We should go rescue this poor dog. Yeah.
Well, it's been great to be back on the podcast.
Yay!
I might just finish off with something that I used to do, and it's been a little while. So,
oh no! Oh my god!
An interesting sort of movie that you've watched recently.
Ooh. Come on, brain, start braining.
Didn't think you'd ever have to say that to yourself.
What I will say, this will not be the first place people have heard of this, but we watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is the most recent Quentin Tarantino one.
Yep.
And I'm not the biggest Quentin Tarantino fan.
Yep.
He creeps me out. I can see his
foot fetish
too clearly most of the time, but I really liked it. And I was very happy that Brad Pitt won his Best Supporting for it.
Didn't understand the criticism. Like me, I didn't understand the criticism towards it.
I think I can understand it, but I don't agree with it. Yeah. I think in terms of like, not everything has to be like people criticizing his depiction of Sharon Tate. And it's like, well, it's not a movie about Sharon Tate. It's like she's a concept in it. And I know we're kind of sick of seeing women as concepts, but sometimes it works.
And it's of that time as well. Like she was idolized, and it was given her that stardom and sort of idolization that she never got because she died.
Exactly. Or it's the only thing she can have because she died. Yeah. Like
And guess what? Alternative universe. Like she doesn't survive. Spoiler. Bruce Lee doesn't get his ass kicked by Brad Pitt. That's what happened.
Yeah, it's like it is the wish fulfillment part. And it's almost like it made me more comfortable because it was such obvious wish fulfillment compared to his normal films where it's like it's creepy because he's trying to sell it as reality, but it is wish fulfillment. Whereas in this one, it's like, no, this is just what I'm doing. So I enjoyed that a lot. Yeah.
Book that you have enjoyed recently?
Well, I'm reading the one you read, the Neil Oliver, the Vikings one, and I'm really enjoying that.
Good old Neil Oliver.
Good old Neil Oliver. It's very readable.
Yeah, he's so good at like sort of just putting things out in a way that's easy to digest, but it doesn't feel patronizing either.
Exactly. Yeah, he's very good at like helping you visualize things without it being goofy. Yeah.
Good album or music you're listening to recently?
Well, Grimes' new album just came out today, finally.
Oh God,
a lot of songs released from it already. Oh, we should have next time. Is
she seeing Elon Musk? Have you found that out?
I believe she is. Right, okay. I think that's what's happening. Is she pregnant? I think she is. Right. Yes. I don't think either of those things were not real. They might have been off and again, on and again, but they seem to be on now.
And daddest dance ever, so he must be.
He's like a very dad for like a supervillain. Yeah, so I've listened to a lot of tracks from it already because she was kind enough to release like half of them before the album came out. But yeah, I'm just super excited for. I really, really, really like her, and I like it. The ingredients of this one are like the aspects of her I like the most coming together. So, I think we're gonna have a dog cameo now.
And last one, you're like a quote. I know you like I've asked you this the first time when you said the one about a voting public gets what it deserves. But is there anything that you've heard recently that you sort of enjoy?
Jeez, you should have asked me like 2 wines ago. I always like the. Ooh, I feel like I said this before as well because it's the only quote I can ever remember. But the Chuck Palahniuk one about. Oh wait, no, I've got another one. This came from a conversation with a friend recently.
Right.
And it's a Neil Gaiman one. Okay. And this kind of applies to anyone in a creative field or anyone who's like sharing deep parts of themselves. But the quote is, to paraphrase, something along the lines of, basically, if you're a writer showing someone something you've written for them to criticize is like giving them a steak, getting in your coffin and saying when you're ready.
That's perfect.
I tried.
It's a good end. Thank you guys for listening. I'm KP, and I will see you again next week, hopefully.
Whee!
Bye.
Bye.